Joe Valenti. I'm a farmer here in Lodi, California, and we're going to talk about how to grow a grape and what do we do with it. As you drive around Lodi and San Joaquin County, you see all these vineyards. They're considered a specialty crop. Okay, first of all, what do we have to grow a grape? And the question is always, well, we got to have a seed. Well, I'm going to get this grape right here, and we're going to split it open. And then what I want you to do is count how many seeds are in here, and I'll give you a hint. It's a seedless grape. So how many seeds are in here? There are none. So if we were to plant this grape into the soil, it wouldn't grow because it's not a seed. And you know, oddly enough, my grapevines are kind of like a bear. If you'd go out there in the summertime, what you would do is see something like this. Green leaves that are growing really, really lush. But what happens when it starts to get cold, and what does the bear do when it gets cold? It goes into hibernation. Well, actually, our grapevines will go into hibernation too, and we call it dormancy. And it's a period of time where they look like they're dead. You look out, it's kind of brown, there's no leaves on it. But if I get my little trusty knife out, you start taking the bark off, and what happens? You see it's green here. So that tells us that it is alive. Well, next what I could do is I go out there and I'll get this cane, and we could kind of call it a stick, but it's really a cane. You cut it like that, flat on the bottom, and we cut this at an angle. And the reason I did that is so when I go to plant it, I don't forget and don't plant it upside down. So what I'm going to do is I'll get this cane, we'll put it into the soil, and we're going to get back to the bear. What happens in the springtime when it starts to warm up? The bear comes out of hibernation. What happens is our grapevines do the same thing. They start to grow. And this is how you could grow a grapevine without a seed. And what happens if I pull this out? Whoa, you can see this nice healthy soil here. And what I'm going to do here is start taking all this apart. And it would look like something like this. You see how the roots formed here from the bottom, and then the shoots came out of the top. In the summertime, it gets really, really hot, maybe 100 degrees. Do I go over to Costco, get me a big pellet of bottled water, go out to my vineyard and water like that? No, it would take a lot of time. What I actually do, we use drip irrigation. We put drip hose under our grapevines. This little thing sticking out right here is called an emitter, or we could call it a dripper. And it's very, very consistent. Out of this dripper right here, in 1 hour, I will fill up 1 cup. And this cup is 64 ounces, it's half a gallon. We put this right next to the plant, and what happens is it drips next to the vine, and we're able to conserve water. We're putting water exactly where we're needing it, we're not wasting it. The other items we have to grow a good grapevine, we have to have good, healthy soil. Now, how many of you kids take vitamins? We actually give our grapevines, it's kind of like a vitamin, but we call it fertilizer. And the fertilizer comes in different forms. Right here, we call it the dry form. It's little pellets, and what it does, it actually makes the grapevine grow healthy. It's kind of like what the vitamin does to you. Now, other things that a farmer may do when we're out in the field is we look for little insects, little tiny bugs, okay? And like what I have right here, actually we could see it with our eye. It's pretty obvious what you can see here. There's a little insect, but what we could do is go out there with a little hand lens. And it's like a little microscope. And what we do, we actually can look at the leaf and identify whether it's a good insect or whether it's a bad insect. So we're always looking at methods and how we could sustainably grow our crops, whether it's through drip irrigation or going out there and looking for good bugs and bad bugs. Actually, Marcus is the one who's the expert in it, and he could tell you a little bit about his land here and his vineyard and give you the history and the programs that he is in.
So my name is Marcus Bokish, and I'm the owner of Bokish Vineyards. And like Joe, I'm a grape grower in the Lodi area. We farm wine grapes. And we're standing right in the middle of one of the oldest wine grapes we farm, which is called the Terra Alta Vineyards. Now, this vineyard's 25 years old, and it's looking pretty darn good. And one of the reasons it looks so good is that we maintain and sustain it. Now, sustain is a very important word. And sustainability is something that we grape growers talk about all the time, because we're not growing a plant that only is going to live 1 year. It can live up to 100 years. But to do so, it has to be nurtured. Just like in your own home with your parents and how they nurture you, these vines need exactly the same thing. So fertilizing is important, watering is important, but also we have to think about how are we going to sustain this vineyard for its life. So one way in which we sustain our vineyards is by participating in sustainability programs like the Lodi Rules for Sustainable Wine Growing Practices. There's also other statewide programs like being a certified organic farmer. Another thing that you can do as a grower is that you can actually decide that I want this vineyard to survive way beyond my time. I want it to be here for my kids, my grandkids, or other families who will eventually farm this piece of property. So just like your parents protect you, I want to protect this land because I want to protect these vines for future generations as well. So one of the ways to do that is through what's called an agriculture conservation easement. Now that's a mouthful of words, but what it really means is that it's a tool that allows me to make sure that this land is always going to stay in agriculture. It's not going to change to anything else. There's never going to be a shopping mall here or housing, and not that that's bad, but you have to remember that there's only 3% of the world's surface that's dedicated to good farm land. So we have to really protect that. So we want to make sure that this land is protected forever through these agricultural conservation easements that are handled by what are called trusts. People who review these wonderful pieces of land and attempt to help save it in perpetuity. And the one that we have here in the Central Valley is the California Farmland Trust.
Okay, now we kind of went over how to grow a grapevine and what do we do with it. But wait a second, how do we know if our grapes are ripe? What we could do is go out with an instrument like this right here, and it's called a refractometer. And what we're checking is for sugar content. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this grape and I'm gonna put the juice on the refractometer. And then once it's on there, what I could do is close the lid right here and look into it, and it will give me numbers. Now, if it's 15, it's a lower sugar content. If it's 25, that means it's really, really sweet, and that's what we're looking for. You want a sweet grape, whether it's for a juice or for eating. There's different methods of harvesting grapes. You could actually go out and pick them by hand, or you could go out with a machine. How we pick the majority of our grapes are actually by a machine. If you were to track how far they travel harvesting grapes for the season, we go from Lodi all the way down to Los Angeles, turn around, and come back. So one machine in 1 year does about 700, 800 acres. When we use our machines, the grape harvesters, we do it at nighttime. The grapes are just crisper at nighttime. And again, grapes are sticky. There's a lot of sugar in there. So when it's warmer during the daytime, everything wants to stick. So that's why we do it at nighttime. What you could do is go to the grocery store and you could buy grapes like this. Well, grapes could actually be red. You could have actually white grapes, and you could have little tiny grapes like this. Now, earlier I explained how this is a seedless grape. Actually, this is a wine grape. And even though it's really, really small, it actually has seeds in it. So there are a lot of grapes that have seeds. As a matter of fact, most of them do. But this one is used more for juice, and it has a tendency of having some large seeds in it, even though it's small. Now, once we go to the grocery store and we pick out that bunch of grapes that we really, really like, and today I like this red colored bunch here, we're gonna buy it, take it home. But once they're at home, what's the first thing you want to do? It's very, very important. You always want to wash them. Now, this is what we refer to as a fresh market grape. It's something you're going to take home and eat whole, okay? There's other methods we could do. We could actually take them to a processing facility that will crush that grape, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a lot of juice out of it. And that's what we're done here. We made a purple colored juice, and we made a red or white colored juice. The other thing we could do with grapes is they'll get a Thompson seedless grape, And what they do, they actually put paper down on the soil and they harvest the grapes and put them on the paper. And out in the sun, they dry. And what happens? It's called a raisin. So when they're all done, you have a raisin like this. And you can have raisins with chocolate on it. You can have raisins with yogurt on it. There's various ways. You could actually put raisins in cereal. So sometimes when you're eating your breakfast and you don't even realize you're eating a grape. Then the other thing that you could do with them, and actually this morning, my wife made me this peanut butter and jam sandwich. So there's numerous ways you could eat grapes.
Now, if we protect all this land and we're able to, on these little 3% that we have, actually grow commodities, then we can go to our local store. I love to go to my Raley's, but any of the local stores to be able to buy all these wonderful products that you see here.